I'd ask that you no longer see me as a role model, but see me as an individual that had the opportunity to be a role model and blew it.
Tommy Morrison, a name that reverberates through the annals of boxing history, was known for his explosive punching power and his larger-than-life persona. He was a boxer who could end a fight in the blink of an eye, delivering devastating one-punch knockouts that would leave audiences in awe. Often compared to legendary figures like Mike Tyson due to his knockout prowess, Morrison's career was both a testament to his incredible talent and a cautionary tale of the dangers of fame, fortune, and self-destruction.
I have tested positive for that virus.
This is the story of Tommy Morrison, a fighter who had more power than Tyson, but whose career was tragically derailed by personal demons. The rise of Tommy Morrison. The Duke in the making. Born on January 2, 1969 in Gravette, Arkansas, Tommy Morrison was destined to be a boxer. He came from humble beginnings and was raised by a mother who saw his potential early on. Morrison began boxing at the young age of 11, quickly developing his skills and setting his sights on a career in the ring. But it wasn't just his technical ability that caught the attention of the boxing world, it was his raw power. From the very start, Morrison displayed one of the most destructive punches in the history of the sport. His knockout power was so legendary that he was often referred to as having more power than Tyson, a comparison that would fuel his career, despite the pressure that it came with. Morrison's early career was a blur of knockouts, and it didn't take long for him to become a top contender.
Everybody turned against me. I mean, it was really strange. You know, it's a very dark umbrella to live under for such a long time. And you know, if it had to happen to somebody in my family, I'm glad it happened to me.
In 1988, he turned professional at the age of 19, and by 1991, he was already making waves in the heavyweight division.
Results of those tests did in fact confirm that
Ask that you no longer see me as a role model, but see me as an individual that had the opportunity to be a role model and blew it. Blew it with irresponsible, irrational, immature decisions. A decision that one day could cost me my life.
His 1989 knockout victory over former world champion Pinklon Thomas was a significant turning point, showcasing his incredible power and cementing his place as one of the most feared fighters in the world. At this point, Morrison had built a reputation for ending fights early. His power was unquestionable, and his right hand was often described as one of the most lethal in boxing history. Morrison's rise continued with a series of dominant wins. His vicious knockout streak gained him national attention and soon put him in the ring with some of the sport's biggest names. But what truly set Morrison apart was his ability to end fights with a single punch. It wasn't just about the accumulation of damage with him.
Also, he's really, he even looks like the guy next door.
Very good, man. And all the Morrisons, I know everybody, you know, and they're just too strong, too big, eh?
It was about that one perfectly placed blow. His knockout-to-win ratio was off the charts, and in many ways it mirrored the destructive force that Tyson once exhibited in the 1980s. The heavyweight clash, Morrison versus Foreman, one of the defining moments of Tommy Morrison's career came in 1993 when he faced the legendary George Foreman for the WBA heavyweight title. Foreman, at 44 years old, was attempting to prove that age was no barrier to greatness, while Morrison, then 24, was considered a rising star in the division. The fight was an important test of Morrison's abilities, and it marked a crossroads in his career. Morrison entered the fight with immense confidence, knowing that his punching power could potentially end the fight at any moment. For much of the bout, Morrison was able to impose his will on the aging Foreman.
That's all I do is boxing. I go to bed thinking about it, and I wake up thinking about it.
I'm Tommy the Duke Morrison, a heavyweight with 24 knockouts, and I'm going to the top.
However, the veteran Foreman was no slouch. Despite his age, Foreman's resilience and experience shone through. In the second round, Morrison had Foreman hurt but failed to capitalize, and as the fight progressed, Foreman's ability to withstand Morrison's power became apparent. Ultimately, Morrison lost the fight by decision after 12 rounds, with Foreman winning the WBA heavyweight championship. While Morrison's loss to Foreman was a setback, it didn't diminish the respect that the boxing world had for his power. Morrison's punching power was often compared to that of Tyson, especially considering his ability to knock out opponents with a single punch. His right hand was feared by fighters and fans alike, and many still believed that he could go on to become one of the greatest heavyweights of his era. However, there was more to Morrison's story than just raw talent in the ring. The controversy, substance abuse, personal struggles, and setbacks. Tommy Morrison's career, like many great athletes, was marked by off-the-ring struggles that would eventually derail his potential for greatness.
I'd be the next heavyweight champion of the world, but I tell you what, I will be a heavyweight champion of the world. So boxing fans, watch out.
Despite his success in the ring, Morrison faced significant personal demons that would haunt him for much of his life. His issues with substance abuse, particularly alcohol and drugs, began to take their toll on his career. These issues, coupled with erratic behavior, led to suspensions and setbacks in his professional life. Morrison's personal struggles became public when he was tested positive for HIV in 1996.
Able to take care of my parents. You know, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here to start with. Basically a household name that's going to make people take me as a real fighter.
A revelation that sent shockwaves through the boxing community. His diagnosis forced him to step away from the sport for a period, and it cast doubt on his future. The news not only impacted his boxing career but also his reputation, as many doubted whether he could make a successful return. Despite this diagnosis, Morrison went on to fight again in the early 2000s after his HIV diagnosis was later disputed. Some felt that Morrison's return to boxing after his diagnosis was a sign of determination and resilience, while others saw it as a tragic attempt to reclaim lost glory. His comeback fights, however, were not nearly as successful as his earlier career, and his decline in the ring mirrored his worsening personal life. One-punch knockouts. The legacy of his power. While Morrison's career was marred by personal troubles, his ability to deliver devastating one-punch knockouts remains his greatest legacy. His punching power was so overwhelming that it became almost mythical in the boxing community. His right hand in particular was a weapon of mass destruction. In his prime, Morrison was capable of knocking out anyone in the heavyweight division with a single perfectly timed punch. His knockout victories over fighters like John the Quiet Man Ruiz, a future world champion, and his thrilling performance against future heavyweight contender Tim Tomaszek were reminders of the explosive force Morrison brought into the ring, even in his later years as his personal life spiraled out of control. Morrison's ability to generate knockout power never truly left him. His natural gifts were undeniable, and in his prime, he was considered one of the most feared punchers in the sport. Perhaps Morrison's most famous knockout came against the rugged fighter Carl "The Truth" Williams, a bout that ended with a thunderous left hook in the 6th round. It was one of those moments that showcased Morrison's incredible hand speed and power. Williams, who had a reputation for being tough and durable, was sent crashing to the canvas, illustrating just how dangerous Morrison was when he had his opponent where he wanted them.
He's got a great left hook, period, end of paragraph.
Bill Caton is grooming Tommy for a shot at heavyweight champion Mike Tyson, and it could be the grudge match of the century.
The final years, redemption and regret. In the years leading up to his death in 2013, Tommy Morrison's life was marked by a series of highs and lows. While he remained a beloved figure in boxing for his explosive style and his one-punch knockout ability, his legacy became increasingly complicated by his personal battles. Morrison faced legal troubles, financial issues, and health complications, all of which overshadowed the remarkable fighter he had once been. Morrison's post-boxing life was filled with both regret and attempts at redemption. He briefly entered into semi-retirement and sought to rebuild his life, but the scars of his past remained. His efforts to live a healthier life and his eventual attempts to reclaim some semblance of the greatness he had achieved in the ring were overshadowed by his personal demons. Morrison's tragic death at the age of 44, due to complications from HIV/AIDS, marked the end of a promising life that had been marred by self-doubt, substance abuse, and the pressures of fame. His story serves as a reminder of the fragility of greatness, how talent and potential can be lost if one does not have the support and discipline needed to sustain it. The influence on modern heavyweight boxing. Tommy Morrison's career continues to resonate within the boxing world. especially in the context of modern heavyweight boxing. Despite the controversies and the setbacks that punctuated his life, his fighting style, particularly his knockout power, left an indelible mark on the division. Morrison's approach to power punching, where a single blow could change the course of a fight, was emblematic of the raw aggression that defined the heavyweight division for decades. In an era where skill and technique often took precedence over sheer power, Morrison stood out as a throwback to the explosive, action-packed heavyweight fighters of the past. His ability to land devastating punches quickly made him a dangerous contender, and he became an archetype for what many fans of the sport considered the essence of heavyweight boxing, a fighter who could end a match with one clean shot. Many modern heavyweights, particularly those in the post-Klitschko era, have been compared to Morrison due to their ability to knock opponents out with impressive force. Fighters like Deontay Wilder, whose own knockout power has become a major part of his fighting identity, often draw comparisons to Morrison's power and aggression. While Wilder's style differs from Morrison's, being more reliant on his range and unorthodox techniques, the comparison is apt because both fighters rely heavily on their raw power to dominate their opponents. Morrison's legacy can be seen in these modern-day fighters who prioritize power punching and the dramatic, thrilling spectacle of knockout victories.
The guy seemed like I was just a step off, the first part through the first round and second round, but once I got adjusted to it, I think things went my way. I'd like to thank ESPN and Top Rank for having me here.
Morrison's influence also extended beyond just the heavyweight division. His approach to boxing, combining intense conditioning, relentless aggression, and a commitment to maximizing his physical gifts, serves as a model for boxers in any weight class looking to develop their knockout power. His fast hands and quick combinations, paired with his brute strength, were key factors in making him one of the most feared punchers of his time. Even though his time at the top was short-lived, the echoes of his fighting style can still be seen in the tactics of today's knockout-heavy boxers. The tragic end, reflections on Tommy Morrison's life and career. As Tommy Morrison's career unfolded, it became clear that his journey wasn't just about boxing. It was a complex story of triumph, struggle, and regret. His premature death at 44, due to complications related to his HIV diagnosis, left many to wonder what could have been. There was always the sense that Morrison was a fighter who could have achieved more, had he been able to navigate the chaos of his personal life and remain focused on his boxing career.
Fights, what do you see, Bill?
I think Tommy is on his way. He's still learning, but he's improving from fight to fight.
A movie producer heard about Tommy and decided that since his granduncle was John Wayne, that acting as well as fighting was in his blood.
In a sport that rewards discipline and consistency, Morrison's story serves as a cautionary tale of the dangers of falling victim to distractions. For many, Morrison's death marked the end of an era in heavyweight boxing. While his best years were behind him by the time of his passing, his impact on the sport was undeniable. In the years following his death, boxing fans and analysts often looked back at Morrison's most electrifying moments, his fights with George Foreman, his one-punch knockout victories, and speculated on how much further he could have gone if not for the personal struggles that ultimately derailed his career. Looking back, Morrison's story is a blend of inspiring and tragic elements. On the one hand, he achieved more than most could ever dream of in the ring. He became a world champion, earned the respect of his peers, and left a legacy of awe-inspiring knockouts. On the other hand, his life was overshadowed by the very forces that gave him his fame: substance abuse, mental health challenges, and the devastating consequences of his HIV diagnosis. His life, cut tragically short, reminds us of the fragility of greatness and the toll that fame and success can take on a person's mental and emotional well-being. Despite his struggles, Morrison's story remains one of the most fascinating in boxing. His knockout power, charisma, and dedication to his craft continue to inspire a new generation of fighters and fans alike.
Will you go for the acting career, or will you go for the heavyweight championship?
Well, I'm going to get the heavyweight championship first, and then we'll work on the other. And I plan on doing it quickly.
The legend of Tommy Morrison lives on in the stories told by those who watched him fight and in the shadows cast by his untimely demise. He may have never reached his full potential, but Tommy Morrison remains a symbol of both what could have been and what was. one of the most dangerous, powerful, and electrifying fighters to ever step into the ring. The legacy of Tommy Morrison. Tommy Morrison's career is a story of what could have been. He had the power to change the landscape of boxing, with knockout punches that made him one of the most feared fighters of his time. His explosive power, which was often compared to Tyson's, marked him as a unique talent, capable of ending any fight in an instant. However, his personal struggles and inability to manage the pressures of fame and fortune prevented him from achieving the sustained success that many believed was within his grasp. Today, Morrison is remembered as a powerful, charismatic fighter whose career was as captivating as it was tragic. His one-punch knockouts and explosive fighting style continue to inspire admiration, but it is impossible to ignore the darker side of his story. Tommy Morrison had the world at his feet, but it was his inability to conquer his own personal battles that ultimately defined his legacy.